see great speakers today speaking, like Peter Hawkins and Aryan. And Peter Hawkins is a lovely person. I met him in the Brazil Canada Chamber of Commerce meeting, and he's an amazing individual. That is an understatement. And every time I see him, there's a great smile on his face. You'll see soon what Peter Hawkins is all about. He's a man who really took the time to connect, say hello, shake your hand, give that warm welcome in an introduction. And when I met him online for a virtual setting prior to this conference, he really took the time to go look at my profile and give me interesting tips. I loved it. I mean, like, he really took the time to give some nice tips. Thank you, Peter, for doing that. And really loved his opening note at the chamber event. And that's when I reached out to Peter, and Peter was kind enough to say, of course. And I can't wait to introduce Peter. Peter is an award-winning business leader. He's an entrepreneur, an advocate for growth, diversity, and opportunity. He's a co-chair of Brazil Canada Chamber of Commerce. He's a co-owner of MELLOHAWK Logistics, a certified diverse international freight forwarder with offices in Canada, US, and Brazil. Peter's supports business in expanding to new markets and fostering global partnerships. He's been honored as the Mississauga Board of Trade's Business Person of the Year and has received accolades for his contributions to Canada's international trade and export sectors. Peter joins us today from Mississauga in the Greater Toronto Area from Canada. Beyond business, Peter is a dedicated mentor, an advisor, actively supporting newcomers, young professionals, and underrepresented groups in finding their paths to their success. Right? He collaborates with educational institutions, with universities and organizations to share his insights and motivates others to pursue their excellence. We are so honored to have you, Peter, with us today. Please join me in welcoming Peter Hawkins to the stage.
I'm delighted to be here. I really am. That was such a lovely introduction. My goodness, I'm wonderful. So thank you for that. You know what? So Vijay, I got to tell you, when I first met you, and so in Edmonton, and we're doing a presentation of many different companies who are looking at the Edmonton area, and to be honest, it was kind of exciting to meet you. And I think we could say a lot of those things that you said about me, we could turn right around and say about you. Warm and welcoming, helpful, dynamic leader. Like those describe you to a T. And it's so nice because you didn't even ask for the advice, and I gave it to you anyway. So that's one thing that, if you say hello to me, I'm going to tell you what I think.
Love it.
But can I justify why? Can I tell you why? The why I
please.
can tell you what I think is I am a business owner. And I sit on a lot of boards with other business owners. And we talk all the time about who works for us and who would like to work for us and how they can present themselves. And more, what I try to do is tell those candidates, this is what an employer is looking for. And this is the power you have to control that, especially online. The great gift of COVID is, of course, that we have killed the gatekeeper. You can go directly to the person who is making the decision. And if you are prepared, if you've done a LinkedIn profile, a resume, and presented yourself professionally online, your chances of moving forward are really, really good, no matter what sector you're in. And it's funny, I own a logistics company, you're obviously right. I also own a film company, but I didn't own a tech company. And I was in the tech space a lot till finally they started complaining. And so
Right.
I now own a tech company too. So
there you go.
So there. And so it's funny because I own a freight forwarding company and I didn't even know what that word was till I owned the company. And it's not that I have a shitload of money or anything like that. It's just that I'm in places where opportunity happens. And why does it happen? It happens because I'm prepared. Okay, I've stockpiled whatever I needed. I have the knowledge. I love to read, and I'm going to jump into one more thing that was really entertaining for me. You heard of the Earthshot Prize, which Prince William gives out a prize for 5 companies every year who are improving the environment or
sounds familiar though. Yeah.
So in South Africa last night, they gave the awards out, and I was on a plane talking to a really interesting guy who was talking about concrete. And concrete. I love concrete. When I was a kid, my father made us all run concrete walls. I know that sounds like a work child labor thing, but it was he wanted to keep us busy and he wanted to keep us fit. And so I learned all there was to learn about concrete. So I'm sitting on a plane talking to a guy, a young guy, and he said what he did, and I said, "Oh, I love concrete." He said, "I've never heard that before in my life." And so we had a conversation. Make a long story short, he has a solid state technology that actually captures heat off concrete and building construction sites that it captures it and recycles it and reuses it. And to make
Right.
the story complete, he won last night. He's a Canadian guy, and he won the prize. He won
Wow.
1.7 million Canadian dollars,
Wow.
given to him by Heidi Klum and Prince William. So Kelly Adams, ATS is the company, and just I love it. I love a success story. I love a guy who had a dream and he did it. And so, but he had to get a job first. He had to pay for it. He had to support his family. And so,
Right.
a lot of that stuff is just finding, yes, he loved concrete, but he also had to find the way to speak to people about his skills and abilities in order to get the jobs that he ultimately got that led to that.
Right.
And
No,
and
that's
you have
brilliant.
to,
That's
yeah,
brilliant, Peter. Thanks for sharing that. It's
yeah.
definitely a story that everyone should. Thanks for sharing that. It's a brilliant story. Yeah.
So, what I want to talk about though here, it's funny because I have a PowerPoint, but I also love just having the exchange of the two of us talking. So I'm debating whether or not I'm going to use my 41 slides.
Yeah,
And
yeah. No,
I'll,
yeah. Go ahead. Stage is all yours. I can come in and out
yeah,
as you
no,
want. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Please feel
Like
free.
it just, I say just stay on. Okay, so what I'm
Okay.
thinking is, so just so everybody knows who I am the co-chair of the Brazil Canada Chamber of Commerce. It's been around for 50 years, and it's all about networking. And what I have discovered, I mean, I don't look Brazilian. Nobody I would think I am Brazilian, but I'm married to a Brazilian, and I live there part of the time, and I own a business in Brazil, and that's why I'm there. Um, and what I have discovered in my own company too, because we ship to Brazil so often, is that everybody in my company is from somewhere else. And in fact, I'm the only Canadian born person in my company. Everybody else is from everywhere else. And what I have discovered too is they had terrible stories. When I said, "So how did you get here?" and they worked in car washes out in on the 401 highway, or they did cleaning jobs, or a lot of tough survival jobs, a lot of good survival jobs, but a lot of tough ones. And I decided that if I met you, you were never going to have to go through that. And if you were coming to Canada as a newcomer, come for yourself, not for your kids. Okay? Because you wanted me to talk about leadership. I'll tell you, making that step makes you a leader. Okay? Canadians are passive. We're sanctimonious and we're smug. Everybody says we're polite. We're not helpful. But I will tell you that newcomers are the people who are going to lead the future. And they've already taken that giant step of leaving their home. And so already that makes them more powerful. Okay? Now, they're vulnerable because the system isn't fair. But the fact is, the system is a game, and everybody can play a game. And the game is present yourself in a way that is digestible by the person who you want to persuade. Okay? So, for instance, if you're looking for a job and they have a list of skills, make sure your skills match their skills. Now, we know they do, we know your hard skills match, but have you phrased them in a way? And that's what I'm trying to give context. So if you're coming from Bangalore and to Canada and you went to a great university, then put it in context. This is the U of T of Bangalore. Okay, just uh, give it context so that I understand it. I understand those skills, and I just want to remind everybody that there is a vocabulary, a shorthand. Now, that's for the applicant and the person who's come here and is looking for a job and all that stuff. On the other side, the employer also has to do some learning here. The employer also has to learn that newcomers will have their own vocabulary, will have their own list of skills and abilities, and they must be able to appreciate those. So I try to coach both the applicants and the employers because in my company, again, everybody's from somewhere else. I had to hear and listen to what it is they had to offer, and different cultures have a huge array of communication. There are those who only talk about their academic credentials. There are those who never look you in the eye because it's a sign of disrespect. There are those that have no handshake. And I try to push all of them into a way that is easily digestible by everybody who's in the story. And I can do that because part of me is an old grandfather, right? So I can say, you should do this, but I'm a successful old grandfather, so you should pay attention to me. I have a funny story. I was at a conference in Philadelphia, and I sat beside Martha Stewart. And I think I told you this earlier too. And Martha Stewart worked on The Apprentice, and she had her own show, and Donald Trump was one of the producers. And so I
Oh
said,
yeah, you did.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, what's it like working with Donald Trump? And she looked at me and she said, he's an old rich man with lots of opinions. And she said, I'm an old rich woman with lots of opinions. And I thought, I aspire to be one or other of those things. You know, whether I like your politics or not is irrelevant. What I want to be is old and rich with lots of opinions. And I'm getting there. So, um, anyway, let's come back just for a second about leadership. What I do want people to understand is that if you have a story, you're a mentor. And if you're a mentor, then you're a leader. And so leaders are not just those naturally bossy people or those charismatic people. They are those people who, in the small moments, are helpful. And I think that is the true sign of somebody who is got the ability to move things forward. If you can reach out and help somebody behind you, you go up in my estimation 1,000%. Really important. And it's funny too because when you look at people talking about jobs and all that stuff, they're always talking about um, job skills and soft skills. And the fact is, the hard skills are, can you do the job? Of course. The soft skills are you a hassle? So we don't want you to be a hassle. We want you to be helpful. And then, of course, can you follow instructions? That's the old classic. Can you follow instructions? Um, uh, in your LinkedIn profile, make sure your picture has you with a warm smiling, wearing a jacket. A jacket gives you gravitas. I like that. Look at you. You're dressed up. You're wearing a jacket, and so am I. And so I'm treating you with respect. Okay. The warm smile is important because I want to be inviting. Okay. Make sure you can fill out all the components. Of course, there's a background image, there's a portrait image, there's headlines, there is search words, there's an about essay. And in the tech world, you also want to deliver it the way that somebody who's looking at you wants to receive it. So it's going to be point form. It's going to be the languages that you can work in, and it's going to be the technology that you want. But it has to be in a nice shorthand way. We have no attention span whatsoever anymore, so you have to be able to deliver it quickly. In addition to that, I I'm a big believer in everybody doing some kind of volunteering, whether it's at your temple or your church or your synagogue or your mosque or in a food bank or a food, some kinds of, any kind of volunteering. I really think that will help you in your future. And a lot of people say, I don't have any money, and why would I work for free for somebody? And so if you're thinking about it working for free, you're wrong. If you are volunteering and if you are giving your time, no matter how little, you are networking and you are also building something very powerful. And I think that is super important. Something else, stop complaining, stop giving your opinions. Okay? Give your opinions on those important issues and save them for the important issues. Don't give them just to be talking. And I, I over and over again, I see people posting online and having comments and saying things that are not helpful. And I want to remind everybody that we want to be helpful. We want to take the time to listen to people and hear their story. And we want to constructively criticize, in other words, help them be better. But we certainly don't want to just give our opinion for our opinion's sake. So I think that is, some of those things are super important. One last thing that I want to throw at you, and I'll wrap this up very quickly. Decide if you're an entrepreneur or an applicant. Okay. And we need both. Both are valuable.
That's
An,
right.
an entrepreneur is going to create their own job and it's going to create the wealth. But the fact is, they need the applicants, they need the candidates who are going to work for them to fulfill all that. And LinkedIn, a lot of these platforms can only do one or the other. You push your agenda. I push my agenda. Okay. We are not looking for jobs. If you are looking for a job, then you absolutely market everything you can in your skills to land a job. But if you are somebody developing an idea, a company, a lifestyle, a brand, or whatever it is, then you're an entrepreneur and that's something different. And you have to decide which one you are. Both are good, both are valuable, but both require a different set of skills and a different set of marketing of yourself.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
quick
go ahead.
question on that,
Yeah,
Peter?
yeah.
I mean, since we are both on the conversation mode right now, I mean, because there are many who might be listening or watching in the future. People are also pursuing their side hustles. They are also working a job, like you mentioned, the other person, this
Yeah.
with the cement he innovated, and they're also on their side hustle. They want to be able to spread their word, spread right. So how do you balance both? Because I
Okay.
think many
It's an
people are on
and,
that board as well.
and it's an art. So I believe that the side hustle, you either create a side hustle that will be permanently a side hustle. It'll always be that other little thing you do, and it's essentially a money making hobby. Okay. But if you have a side hustle that is going to be your ultimate business, then in fact, take the job that you can do your 9 to 5 job, fulfill your role, and do it as well as you can, and then spend all of your energy on the side hustle to make it win. Okay. What happens too, if you were younger then and don't have a family yet, have very little responsibilities, you have much less to lose. The second you have a family, you have kids, you have a mortgage, you have bills, you have a lot more to lose, and it's harder. Okay. Something else. Think in terms of a team, and no matter who your spouse is or your partner, teams work way better than one person alone. Okay, so if you can create a team, you can really get ahead. When I look at my own staff, those couples that behave as teams, that they look forward in the same direction, are much more successful, not just financially, but also just in their lives, even in their downtime. And I admire that very, very much. And it's kind of interesting too, because I have um, about half my staff is non-binary. And it is really interesting to watch how they navigate relationships in terms of their side hustles and their careers, because there's a lot of obstacles for those individuals. And what has happened over and over again is they have found a way to make a team to be successful. But my short answer is either decide if it is a permanent side hustle or if it is your vocation. If it is your vocation, you've got to find every way to throw energy at it. In our own company, we worked many years getting very little return and we were really tired. But the ultimate return was a lifestyle that we have now that is absolutely fantastic. We do whatever we want, and that is the perfect life.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, no, that's it. But beyond that, what I like to do is, talk to people about, their presence online, make it as professional as you can, fill out everything, understand that you can then target people directly, and whether you're doing fundraising for a seed round, or if you're trying to find a job, or if you're just trying to make connections, approach people professionally. When you see somebody post, then comment thoughtfully on that post. If they respond, then fantastic, because when you make the connection, you have a warm connection then. And when you do send a connect request, greet, compliment, ask for advice. Hi, Peter Hawkins, you're terrific. I would like some advice on blah blah blah. And it is really important because everybody likes a compliment. And engaging people is relatively easy, no matter how shy you are. Say you're too shy to go talk to somebody or phone somebody, you can't be too shy to write an email. You can't be too shy to write a note, a connect note. I don't believe that. I believe if you are too shy to do that, you're actually just lazy procrastinator and need a kick in the ass. So, or kick in the neck. Where am I kicking you? I'm going to kick you somewhere. So, at any rate, who is a leader? Everybody can be, because the definition of leader changes everywhere. And but I'd love to hear a little bit from your audience too. I'd like to hear what their thoughts are on this, and I can't wait to hear what Orion has to say as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. We have we have at least like 5 or 6 people watching the stream right now.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Because I can fill up the time. Don't worry.
Oh no, no. I'm just like looking at the.
Well, while you're looking at the questions, one thing that I want to say too, if you're trying to think of an elevator pitch, whether it is for yourself getting a job or your new company that you're trying to to push. People say, oh, it's 30 seconds, it's 2 minutes. Well, if you're on an elevator for 2 minutes, you're going to the moon. I can tell you that right now. An elevator pitch for me, the specific kind that I like to get, whether it's you selling yourself or selling your a new idea, is 5 seconds. Okay. My name is, I am a, I want to. And that's all there is to it. My name is Peter Hawkins. I'm a mentor for newcomers. I want to help everybody get a job at their pay grade. Okay. It is just short and fast, but let me really understand what it is you do. So if you're a tech person who loves your technology, be sure and find a way, as I said at the very beginning of this, to translate that to the person you're talking to. You know, I always say, pretend you're talking to an 8-year-old from a different culture. So, any questions coming up?
Nothing so far. I can bring in our we have a panel here, so I can bring in Aryan and
Yes,
Ashini, and if they have any questions, why please
I'd like
jump
to
in.
hear. Yes,
Actually, Peter,
yes.
one of the biggest challenges that I constantly come across is when I'm trying to promote my ideas is bias. Yeah. And it seems to be like that's a battle that you never can win. So how do you handle bias?
So it's funny because it's something that I struggle with for on two levels. First, when I'm presenting myself, and second, when I am listening to others, because I come with my own unconscious bias on a whole level of things. The bias that comes against me is a shock to me. It's ageism. Okay, I see a lot of young people who discount me because of my age, and little do they know that I'm doing stuff that they never dreamed of. Okay. What I think the best way you can deal with bias is a little bit of humor and a little bit of familiarity. The longer you talk to somebody, the more they see the whole you, not just their preconception of you. In my opinion, that's how I would start it. And the same, too, is I've had to learn to listen to whoever's talking to me because people present in many different ways in many different cultures, and I have to have the patience to hear their story so that I can figure out what I can and cannot do for them, or what they can and cannot do for me. But what is your experience, Aryan? What is your experience with bias? When can you give me a specific example?
Um, it's more so in technology. There is loads and loads of bias which is really hard to recognize by the people that are actually having that bias. Yeah, so even pointing things out like that's an assumption there. What do you base that assumption on? So the way I'm usually going is that I'm giving them the ammunition that they were going to use themselves, and then say, okay, so we know all these points. Do you see a way around it? So I'm actually confronting them with their own bias and then ask them to walk around it.
Which is a wonderful way to do it. I mean, and that's a helpful way because it becomes a, a learning experience for both of you. However, I I'm so loud and noisy that I forget to take that minute to come back and, what do you think? What does Bette Midler say? She goes, enough about me. What do you think of me? And, but I think in your case, if you are able to do that and remembering to do that, and I think that's a real, a genuine way around it by merely asking them, how would they solve this problem? How would they work around it? And how has that worked for you?
Yeah. My biggest challenge is actually for myself that a lot of bias is hidden in your culture.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I'm Dutch.
Hmm.
So for me, it's a struggle to be polite. I just want to say what it is. Yeah. And just by doing that, I have already offended people.
Yes.
And
Yep.
yeah, because it looks like I'm taking away choice in the conversation. They don't have space anymore to maneuver. So what I'm constantly trying to do is imagine, okay, is my style of communicating, is that the problem? Yeah. So even there's already bias. So um, we have to be very careful that we just not staring at each other, because there are so many elements about what we can do wrong in a conversation that it's not moving forward anymore. So
Yes,
yeah,
it's funny. First of all, your self awareness is fantastic. The fact that you know this exists, and it's funny because when you said I'm Dutch, I'm straightforward. I always say that Canadians are Germans with a smile, and because we are also straightforward, but we're friendly.
yeah,
And people comment, and as I said earlier, how that we're always polite. Well, we are so polite that we're not helpful. We don't tell people what the problem is. And I try to really navigate that indirect speech carefully to help people. If someone smells bad, I find a way to tell them and to help them through that and give solutions. And because that's holding them back financially, full stop.
yeah.
And so, and I do it by using all the examples in my own office too, because I have many stories to tell. In the bias thing is a really tough thing because you and I are pale, male, and stale, right? And so I think Ashni, we should be hearing something from you. If I'm curious now, all right, you're a master's student. When you start to talk to someone about your ideas, what's the pushback you get?
I was just thinking of this conversation, but I feel like it definitely depends on who I'm talking to. And I find that usually people coming from career services to our campus handle these situations differently than educators. And most of the time, when I do talk to educators, it's obviously what they signed up for, it's their passion, they want to have their students succeed. But I feel like most of the times when you go to things like career fairs, they're hearing the same thing from about hundreds and hundreds of kids. So it's hard to differentiate what am I actually going to say to stand out from everybody else? Because also coming from a campus, the internship opportunities, career opportunities, they're also very similar. So even if I say, for example, I worked in a lab or X, Y, and Z, I'm not unfortunately that different from the hundreds of other kids that have stood next to me and done that same exact lab. So I feel like that's definitely a pushback that I face trying to stand out. And especially now, I feel like more and more people are doing their masters and getting that higher degree of education versus decades ago, it was not as common to do so. So that's also a challenge I face. And I feel like getting a master's is like the new undergrad degree, if that makes sense. So,
Hmm. Well, it's funny. So when I hear both of those things, because I have to tell you, the candidate in front of me, you, is
mhm,
sophisticated, polished, affirmative. I don't see you looking like anybody else. And so there might be a little bias on your own front, believing that
mhm.
I'm just the same as everybody else,
Yeah.
because you're distinctive and you're interesting and you're thoughtful, and those are wonderful qualities that set you apart from everybody right off the bat. I don't care because all the people who might also be interesting and thoughtful as well would be in a different way. Arian, do you have something to share on that?
Yeah, no, I actually fully agree. What I always try to do is uh, bounce the ball back to young people and say, this is not you selling for the job. This is you selling yourself.
Mhm.
So uh, look at yourself and look at where are your strengths. Yeah, you need me to tell me what value you can bring to the organization that I represent. The only person that knows your value is yourself. Yeah. And that means that you need to be confident in talking about your value. And I've discovered that my best way to talk about value was knowing where I didn't deliver value.
Hmm.
So that actually showed me where I did have my value. So if I'm bad at those things, then actually for the rest I'm not too bad. Yeah. So that would be my approach.
Isn't that interesting? Vijay, and can you do me a big favor? I'm going to answer Bala's question in 1 second. But Vijay, can you actually introduce Arian just to make sure that we all have his context and his details. I know he's giving a keynote, but I think people should know who he is and just why he's so valuable here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yes. It's it was just coming. Definitely, Aryan. I just have his intro right here. Yeah, and sorry, Aryan. That's the best picture we got. we tried our best to put that there, and thank you, gentlemen, for doing that. And we have a question from Bala on the YouTube stream. Thank you, Bala, for that question. So let me present that question for everyone to see. So the question is like, hi, Peter, do you have any specific questions for Gen Z for developing their leadership skills?
Well, let me make an observation that's going to offend every Gen Z because.
And Peter, before you continue, there was one other comment about the volume. Is there a way to increase your volume by any chance? There was something I saw on LinkedIn.
Let me see if I can, or I can just speak louder. I've never heard anybody tell me that I was too quiet before in my life. No worries. All right. I just increased it slightly. Let's see if that is better. What do you think? Is that a little better?
Yeah, I can hear you okay. I can hear you okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And I'll try to speak into the mic too. So I'm the very tail end of the boomers. And of course, we're the rich ones that spoiled the world for everybody else. Okay. And, oops, that's my view on that. But then I look at the people who came after, and I always find they're the perpetual babies. They never grow up. And I have talked to lots of 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds who still aren't ready to get married, or still aren't ready to have a relationship, or still aren't ready to commit to something. And what I think that I want to give a couple of pieces of advice. If you're Gen Z, commit to anything, anything at all. Learn it, be good at it, and then share it with others. What I also think is you're probably mid-career now, and this is the time where you should be making advances in money. So if you're not making advances in money, you should be talking to Aryan and me to tell you how. and because those are the years that you make the advances to pay for your retirement, so that you have a wonderful life in your later life. And um, uh, it's funny because I think I talk to a lot of people who say, I just don't know. When I was young, it was called, oh, I have to go find myself. Now it seems to be is I just can't figure out what to do next or what I want to do with my life. And the person's 45 years old. And I'm thinking, unless you're living to be 200 years old, you better get a start. And so I really urge everybody to just take that step, a small step to learn something, okay? And be good at something. And, I'm talking professionally, of course. And if once you do that and that satisfaction, you'd be surprised at how much it would propel you forward. And especially if you can stop looking at your navel and start looking at the future, I think that is something that's really valuable to do. I know that I'm sounding like an old fart on that one. I don't know, Arian, go ahead. What's your view?
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Although I am fighting that image of especially stale in the pale male. And as you know, people are always saying the older you get, the more you go back to with your youth. So I'm actually Gen Z right now, and I want to change the world.
I love it.
And I do regret looking back and say, oh, why wasn't I louder when I was younger? Yeah. You are always afraid to embarrass yourself. The thing is, you don't embarrass yourself, you're learning. Yeah.
Oh, it's context. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So really for me, it is, it's about challenging yourself constantly through your whole life. In every aspect of your life, keep challenging yourself, because flat lines are boring. Yeah. Lines that go up, and even if they go down, at least life is interesting. Not always positive, but it's interesting, and you are forced to do things. And if you're passive, then yep, life will spin on. You will have the predictable outcome, but will you be happy? So I actually just had the conversation with my son who is a Gen Z, and he doesn't know what to do. He's got an amazing brain, but he's got no clue what to do with it. The only thing he knows is that he knows everything better than everybody else. Yeah. So I said to him, hey, that's a skill. Do something with it. Yeah. Tell other people, for instance, how to use AI. Yeah. You know, you're always telling people, oh, you need to do this, like this. You're just not capable of executing it. Well, nowadays with AI, it will execute for you. So there's no excuse anymore not to use all those ideas and feed it into AI and get outcomes.
Uh, you're speaking to the choir here because I have discovered something. Well, first of all, my mother is going to be 101 on December 31st, and she is still got a smartphone, and she is still sending stuff and posts on Instagram and doing all this stuff. Now, I'm not interested in anything she posts, but I will tell you she's using everything. And she was on my back because she kept saying, "Oh, you have big dreams and you never do anything." And I'm thinking, I've done lots, but I will tell you, AI has been gold for me. Exactly. It executes all that stuff that we're too lazy to do, too much of, we are procrastinators or whatever. AI does it for us. And it's remarkable how you can harness that for good. I, to be honest, I love that tip right out of there, and I'd like to share it with everybody. Don't be afraid of it. If you are, you're crazy. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of it. But when it comes to dealing with your son, now, do you have a bias when you talk to your son?
Of course.
Just checking.
Actually, what he is the most afraid of is that I expect him to be like me.
And all
So
you
he
can
has
do is
bias
tell him you
too.
love him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, and again, we're now really sounding like pale men. uh, but I think honesty and open conversations are what's needed. I've had such interesting conversations with a guy actually in Vancouver over the internet. We somehow connected, and he was trying to bridge with his app estranged kids from their parents. And they didn't dare to communicate with them anymore because they were afraid of the feedback that they would get. So he was creating a safe environment where when the kids were ready, they could start communicating without the fear of backlash. Yeah. So,
Seriously, that just blows my mind.
yeah. So it's about creating a safety zone. It's like the new agile. What's the most important aspect of new agile is having a safe place. And a safe place means that you can talk about what you need to talk about and you won't be attacked for it. And I think that's the major message that Gen Z needs to hear is find those safe places, talk to people to create those safe places.
Wow, amazing, amazing. I love that. Vijay, I'm
Yeah,
curious.
no,
Are
I
you?
love that. I was enjoying your conversation at the same
Yeah,
time, back and
yeah.
forth, kind of replying to comments. I enjoyed your conversation, gentlemen. I was going to watch it again when it's after this is all recorded. I enjoyed all of that. But something I felt, I mean, if I could add 1 cent or a half cent, was something I found is like I'm 40 years right now. I'm learning the world, and I'm learning from you gentlemen as well. What I understood really is like you got to be curious and you got to be courageous, Ashwa. I think during COVID, I saw that people were so fearful even to walk in the street for 100 different reasons, right? I don't want to get into that, but at the same time, you have to be courageous. You got to be curious, but at the same time, treat people with respect and kindness. I think that goes a long way. You cannot be disrespectful at all. You have to be respectful. You have to be respectful to the Gen Z, to the older gentleman, to the middle-aged gentleman, to the women, man. I think respect and kindness has to be the way without ever about talking about it, because I don't think enough people talk about it. right? You got to have the courage and treat people with respect. I think that goes a long way. It seems to. I couldn't do it otherwise. That's how I've always done it, right from my schooling to even now, and seem to have worked. So
It's funny, BJ. It's when I was 40, I had a really glamorous job. I'd had it for 10 years, and then I got fired. And
mm,
a big multinational bought my company. I worked for a publisher, and we had some great books that were made into Oscar-winning films, and so things were very glamorous. And then 160 of us were let go, and I'm 40 years old, overpriced in a dying industry. Now, it was killing me. And I was not curious. I was not courageous. I was mad and sulky and irritable. And then when my partner Arno said, I want to start a shipping company with your money, I said, well, I don't want to move boxes. I don't care. I don't want to do anything with it at all. But the fact is that turned around my life. And so, my first 20 years is, you're a kid growing up and then you go to university. The next 20 years is whatever your career might be as you struggle to find your career. And then the next 20 years is something else. Well, my next 20 years was my shipping company that allowed me to have a life I love, full of travel, adventure, and frankly, anything we want to do. When Taylor Swift performs, we flew to Germany to see her. I'm not going to spend $6,000 here when I can go for $10,000 and take 10 people and we all go there. And so it's just now, can I name a Taylor Swift song? No, I can't at all. But still, it was a worldwide thing, so I go. And it is just, I have a life that I never expected um, after I was 40 at a whole new career change. And now you're 40, dynamically creating this new world already, this media conglomerate. But I wonder, like, I can see that you have the whole world ahead of you of what you can do next. And I'm curious. So, Arian, and what you're doing, what what is new that you're doing? What is something that you didn't do 10 years ago?
Um, I'm actually stepping out of my safe zone. My safe zone is technology, and what I am doing is actually saying we're all wrong in how we do things. And what I'm saying is, one of the things that I'm saying is, IT has stolen strategy from the business. We should give it back. Yeah. So, and there's an underlying theme that has always been part of what I've been doing, and
Hmm.
that is simplifying. Yeah. So my strength is seeing patterns and
Hmm.
then say, hey, as soon as I see a pattern, I get my lazy side pops up and say, oh, how can I automate that pattern so I don't have to do it anymore? Yeah. So that's what I've been chasing my whole life. And only in the last 5 years, everything came together for me that I was able to say, okay, now I can step outside of that technical world and see how should this function in the business world. And to be honest, the last 5 years, I've just spent time to learn how to talk business because I couldn't. I always fell back into my own language, in my own jargon, and I wasn't able to connect with the business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went deeper and deeper into what am I actually trying to tell and what are the foundations of my thinking. So my theme is all about people shouldn't think in solutions. People should be thinking in outcomes.
Can you tell us more about that? I want to
I
hear more
have
about
a
that.
whole presentation about it, but I'm happy to continue this format because it's actually easy to talk to people. Um, VJ, what do you want?
I'm all game, gentlemen. Whatever format you'd like to do it, that's fine.
Yeah.
This is a format I'm already familiar with. I've done podcasts in this format. I'm totally fine with it. But you have spent time putting on the slides, you want to share it, that's totally fine as well. We can all collaborate and look at the slides and talk also. I mean,
yeah,
I'm all game.
I'm very curious. I'd like to see it.
All right.